शुक्लां वरदरं विष्णुं दधिवर्णं ददभुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तयेत् अगजाननपद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानां एकदन्तमुपास्महे गणानां त्वा गणपतिं गवामहे कविं कवीनाम् उपमत्रवत्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणपद शृण्वन् ऊतिभित्तीरसादनम् ॐ श्रीमन्महागणाधिपतये नमः ध्यायामि। ॐ क्लीं ह्रीं क्लीं ग्लौं गं गणपति वरवरदसरदनं मे स्वामी स्वाहा। ॐ क्लीं ह्रीं क्लीं ग्लौं गं गणपति वरवरदसरदनं मे स्वामी स्वाहा। ॐ क्लीं ह्रीं क्लीं ग्लौं गं गणपति वरवरदसरदनं मे स्वामी स्वाहा। ॐ क्लीं ह्रीं क्लीं ग्लौं गं गणपति वरवरद सर्वजनं मे स्वामी स्वाहा। Sri Matre Namaha. We are now going to reverently recite the sacred Dakshinamurti Stotram. Before we actually begin this profound recitation, allow me to say just a few introductory words. The days of the week, specifically Monday through to Sunday, are indeed followed, and that is absolutely correct. The primary and most significant difference between ordinary everyday discourses and this particular discourse is that, for example, if you truly understand the profound meanings of the sacred Lalita Sahasranama or the revered Vishnu Sahasranama, then the complete meaning becomes abundantly clear, it becomes readily understandable. But when it truly comes to implementing that, whatever is genuinely possible, we diligently try to put it into practice. However, when it pertains to a profound principle that is entirely beyond words, or concerning a divine God who is utterly beyond form, if someone, out of immense compassion, gives a tangible form to the formless and conveys it in silence, what kind of elaborate discourse can be given about that? What more can truly be said? So, that's why, before delving into the meaning of this Dakshinamurti Stotram, I have asked many questions just to understand its meaning. For example, you absolutely need to know the profound Tripura Rahasya, a sacred text in the holy city of Kashi. Otherwise, this intricate subject will not be entirely clear to you. Allow me to provide you with a small illustrative example. Suppose, for instance, someone is a truly great and renowned scholar. Imagine someone says they've seen Niagara Falls. They say, I've seen Niagara Falls. It's huge. But suppose they've never actually seen a waterfall before. If you ask them, how big is it? Have you seen Kuttalam? They'll say, no, I haven't. Then you ask, have you seen any other waterfall at least? They'll say, no, I haven't. Then there's a hill near Tirupati, you know that one. They'll say, yes, I've seen that one. Oh, and I've seen that other one too. But have you seen the Veda waterfall? That one has hundreds, even thousands of steps, you know. How would you compare them? That's exactly how this Dakshinamurti Stotram is. If you want to truly experience it, you can't just explain it in words and be done with it. That's why even the explanation of the shloka is done in silence. How did this come about in the first place? That is, when the grand creation happened, the Lord, while profoundly remaining in a state of absolute non-difference from the individual soul, decided to graciously bestow immense bliss upon that very existence. Listen very carefully, he keeps repeating the exact same sentence again and again. Because for you to truly and deeply understand, for me to really grasp it completely, just hearing it once won't be nearly enough to fully comprehend the profound meaning. Dakshinamurti. When God created the universe, the individual soul remained in a state of non-difference from him. And he thought that the soul would continue to exist in that state, experiencing the bliss of that non-difference life, the bliss of a dream remaining pure and untouched. What does that mean? He thought, let me experience myself in many forms. He decided to experience himself in many forms. But what did he do then? He used his intelligence and created a world. But by using that intelligence, he forgot to realize that he is not separate from the world he created. He did not reach the state of understanding that the world is one thing and he is another. Thus, by experiencing the pleasures and pains in that world, he established a separate existence for himself. The individual became separated from Brahman. By performing many actions and taking many births in this world that he did not create himself, there is a verse that says, the world is inescapable. That is, when you look at the world as if in a mirror, how does it appear to you? He called it the mirror world. In the mirror, you don't see a grand scene. Imagine that you see mountains, hills, trees, and lakes. Maybe you see fire, maybe you see a body of water. If you try to touch them, do you feel anything? There's nothing at all. If you ask where it came from within. We'll explain this in the later verses. What can be said is that a being of this true nature, such as this, experiences many joys and sorrows. For the sake of the compassionate ones, to bind this attachment, an incarnation as Dakshinamurti was taken. Dakshinamurti has many meanings. It is the form that faces south. Who is the one who faces south? It is Yamadharma Raja. So who is Yamadharma Raja? He is the destroyer. To protect ourselves from Yamadharma Raja, who takes away the knowledge, stability and permanence within us, and to safeguard ourselves from him, the one who comes with skill is called Dakshinamurti. The one who faces south comes with skill. If I want to attain the state of Dakshinamurti, what should I do? How should I be? I should face north. Who resides in the north direction? Brihaspati. If you say that Lord Shiva is in Kailash, then the form of Shiva is Guru Brihaspati. The word Guru refers to both the Guru and the Lord. By saluting the Guru and the Lord as Dakshinamurti, we can attain knowledge. The Lord is Mrityunjay, the conqueror of death. On the other side is death itself. That Lord is time. Yama, the god of death, comes and takes away the life force. That very Lord comes as Brihaspati and grants you another birth. See how wonderful it is on one side and the other. To salute that Lord who appears in the form of Brihaspati, in the form of the Guru, Dakshinamurti is positioned facing south. For those who praise Dakshinamurti, there are 10 verses in the Dakshinamurti Stotram. That's it. It's not any longer than that. It is said that whoever recites the Dakshinamurti verses will have their Guru's strength increase. The strength of the Guru increases in our zodiac signs and among our planets. When the strength of the Guru increases, even if there are faults caused by other planets, all those faults will also diminish. Therefore, every day, whether you understand the Dakshinamurti Stotram or not, you can listen to a clear and articulate audio of it. I can send it to you if you want. It's a very well done audio. I learned by listening to it. I used to listen to about 10 verses of it every day. So through Dakshinamurti, with the blessing of Mrityunjaya, that is Lord Shiva, I have no fear of death. What kind of death? If you look at it in these meanings, that's what it means. The state he described is far from where we are. You can count the people in that state on your fingers. Even the current gurus are not like that. When you think of Ramana Maharshi, only his name comes to mind. Shankaracharya established that form of worship. That knowledge itself is so profound that Lord Shiva incarnated as Dakshinamurti. Here, every word and every metaphor is very important. It is said that he sat under the banyan tree. The banyan tree, scientifically known as Ficus bengalensis, is a remarkable and iconic species native to the Indian subcontinent. This magnificent tree is renowned for its unique growth habit, characterized by aerial prop roots that descend from its branches and take root in the soil, eventually developing into thick woody trunks. Over time, these prop roots can spread outwards, covering vast areas and giving the impression of an entire forest rather than a single tree. The banyan tree holds immense cultural and religious significance in many parts of Asia, particularly in India, where it is often revered as sacred and associated with various deities and spiritual beliefs. Its sprawling canopy provides extensive shade, making it a popular gathering spot in villages and a symbol of community and longevity. Historically, these trees have served as landmarks, meeting places, and even natural shelters. Biologically, the banyan is a fig species, and its fruits are an important food source for various birds and animals, contributing to the ecosystem's biodiversity. The tree's ability to grow to immense sizes and live for centuries makes it a living monument, embodying resilience and enduring natural beauty. Its intricate root system and expansive growth pattern are a testament to its adaptability and strength in diverse environments. అందుకే మౌన వ్యాఖ్య పరిహితం. That is, before we recite the verses of Dakshinamurti, who, through mere silence, could convey the nature of that Brahman, the supreme reality, which contains everything within itself and shines forth as let us first meditate upon him. In the study verse, first we recite the damn verse and its meaning. Om Yo Brahmanam Vidadati Purvam Yo Vai Vedanta Prahinodi Tasmai Tam Hadeva Vapma Buddhim Pragadam Mumukshurvai Sharanamaham Prapadye. To whom am I offering my salutations? Who is that Parabrahman? Om Yo Brahmanam. That Brahman's, what is its capacity or power? Vedadati Purvam. To that Brahman who is the most supreme, the most ancient, who has existed since time immemorial and who has attained Brahmajnana, the knowledge of Brahman, I offer my salutation. Why am I offering my salutations? Yo vai Vedanta prahinoti tasmai. Because Brahman is the one who imparts to me the essence of the Veda. Vedanta prahinoti tasmai. Am I offering salutations to Dakshinamurti, who is the embodiment of Brahman, in order to request that he grant me the knowledge that is the essence of the Vedas? Tam hadeva mapma buddhim pragadam. Though I am just a body, I ask that my soul may realize and shine with the presence of the Supreme Being within. Mumukshurvai sharanamaham prapadye. Mumukshu. That means only one who seeks liberation desires it. That's why when you approach the Guru, if you must have any desire, let it be for liberation. I'm caught up and struggling in this. I am separate. You are separate. The world is separate. The world is something I have created. Even so, I think I am separate. And that is separate. The world I have created is what causes me suffering. And I am the one experiencing that suffering. When the world I have created makes it seem like the happiness within me comes from these things, I start believing that happiness comes from outside. And thus I get entangled in attachment and illusion, struggling within it. He said, everything is me. Unable to realize that with this pain, this yearning, and this longing, I must go to the Guru. Mumukshurvai. That understanding, the liberation from delusion and from the cycle of well-being and suffering is called moksha. I don't need anything else. Even in our journey, that's enough. Ratna Tintaka Lola Mukta Palanvita. Ratna Grave Tintaka Lola Mukta. Graveyulu, Chintakulu, Lolulu, Muktulu. Worship him always. Griveyulu. In the bell sound, they are not the ones who spend their time in meditation, constantly contemplating the mother. Ratna Griveya. Chintaka. With some desire, for that desire, or for one or two or many desires, they keep coming to the mother thinking, oh mother, with worry. The person from Luluru doesn't even know what he wants. Half the people are like that, they don't know what they want. Why do they keep asking again and again, wishing for this and that, wanting it here, wanting it there, wanting this, wanting that, endlessly asking for more and more? I don't need anything. To be granted the great knowledge that there is no difference between you and me, to be liberated from you, to attain moksha, that is what true liberation means. That is the state of non-duality. That is why The Advaita philosophy as taught by Shankaracharya says that it is not about I am worshipping, but rather what the scriptures declare. Even after hearing everything, it is not being understood. When this individual thinks, I am the creator of my own world, I have chosen it myself, then this jiva becomes Brahman. Separated from that, existing with these qualities, and because of those qualities, experiencing the world it has created, along with its pain and pleasure. He compared the countless births to the potter's worm. Just as the potter's worm leaves and yet stays right there, in the same way, the jiva remains here. That is why the Guru says, hey, don't cling to Brahman, don't cling to the girl. Right now you are attached to these walls. But like me, you should exist beyond this enclosure. Look, to be beyond these qualities, like I am, you say to me, this is like a movie. Everyone says the same thing. Even those people say, hey, don't seek refuge here. And when they show it like this, we think, what is this? It gives charity, it gives money, I want this, that, whatever. You don't need to worry about all that, my boy. What do you mean? Yo om yo brahmanam vidadati purvam yo vai vedantya prahinodi tasmai tam hadevamapma buddhim pragasam mumukshurvai sharanamaham prapadye. There's another strength, the desire for liberation, right? For those who have truly surrendered to the Guru, you shouldn't say, do this, do that. There shouldn't be any desire. Even if you are cut down, how did Ramakrishna Paramahamsa attain Kali Mata? Me. By being ready, that kind of surrender. That's why when you go to the Guru, you shouldn't have any expectations of what you want to learn. That very presence itself is teaching, even if nothing is taught, even if only silence is taught. Why is my Guru not speaking to me? He is in this world. If you keep thinking he never says anything, then that is not true surrender. True complete surrender means having the peace of mind that whatever happens is fine no matter what is done. That is called the lesson of peace. First of all, if you want to learn any great knowledge, be careful, not even by mistake. Should you think of a great knowledge or a great person as just an ordinary person? When you are near a great philosophy, remember that God himself, Dakshinamurti or Adi Shankaracharya, is the Guru. This is the tradition. God, Dakshinamurti, Shankaracharya, Guru. It is only because Shankaracharya spoke about Dakshinamurti that we are able to understand him now. The hymn he composed is the Dakshinamurti Stotram. I must receive that knowledge from them. I need to understand what it truly is. With their grace, I must experience it. First, I need to know it, then I must understand it. I must experience it. I need to realize that I and he are one. This whole process, what should I do for this process to happen? Sharanamaham prapadye aham sharanam. Do I have surrender? After that, he meditates on the Guru. Who is this Guru? As I mentioned earlier, Dakshinamurti. Om Maunavyakya Pragadita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam Varshishthante Vasat Rushiganairaavrutam Brahmanishtai Acharyendram Karakalita Chinmudramanandamurtim Swatmaravam Muditavadanam Dakshinamurtimide. We are teaching in the school. Om Maunavyakya Pragadita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam Varshishthante Vasat Rushiganairaavrutam Brahmanishtai Acharyendram Karakalita Chinmudramanandamurtim Swatmaramam Muditavadanam Dakshinamurtimide. Let's look at an example. Om Maunavyakya Pragaditam. I already explained that, didn't I? He is seated. All those around him, all the sages are seated. They have come for this, for liberation. A word for the one who has come seeking that intense desire for liberation. Speaking, he speaks. This person speaks, whoever says, I want liberation. Otherwise, if he says, I don't want it, I don't need anything, then that's not true desire for liberation. How else can you say it? I don't need anything. If you say, I don't need anything, then you're actually saying you want something. If you say, I want the state of not needing anything, then you still want something. To truly express the state of not needing anything, only silence can convey it. How will you attain it? Only silence can answer that. One silence speaks to another, that is Dakshinamurti. When one silence communicates with another, knowledge arises. See how profound that is. That's why looking at Dakshinamurti, Mauna Vyakhya Prakatitam, even in silence there are commentaries. When Buddha was imparting teachings, someone once came to him and said, the knowledge you are offering, I have not yet fully received it. He sat there. The other person didn't speak. What's the news here? When hours and hours could have been spent talking, nothing was said. Nothing. Mauna Vyakhya Prakatitam. That means there are commentaries in silence. Through the commentaries that arise in that silence, something is revealed. What is it? What exactly is being revealed? Brahma Tattvam. Mauna Vyakhya Prakatitam. What has been declared? Parabrahma Tattvam. What does Parabrahma mean? Look, where is Parabrahma? If you say he's here, then look, he's right here. You can say this is Parabrahma. If you say he's there, then you can say Parabrahma is present both here and there. If you ask where Parabrahma is there a word to describe something that pervades everywhere? It is beyond letters, beyond thoughts, without any sign. Rama's very first statement, Trimatre Namaha, though it has many meanings, one meaning is that it is immeasurable. That is, it is immeasurable. There are two meanings to immeasurable. To measure means to bow here, to offer salutation. So what should one do for it to become a complete salutation? What should one do for it to become perfect worship? No one knows. Do you know what needs to be done for that to happen? Because of this silent declaration, I am the one who realizes that you and I are not separate, Mother. To know that, we perform so many rituals, striving to become a perfect devotee. Just as we say Nama when we receive something, in that same manner, in such a state, he is speaking now. What is he saying? Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam Varshishtante Vasat Rishiganairavrutam. It is said that disciples were present, seated all around in a circle. All the sages were seated there. He describes how they were seated. Brahmanishthai. When sitting before the Guru, that's why I often say, do not move. If I move, people say it causes a disturbance. Why? Usually when discussing something like this, I myself don't know where such a supreme Brahman experience might occur. Even for me, to connect with it and understand what I'm doing is difficult. And to actually connect and draw the essence from it is even more difficult. To put it simply, during such times of struggle, the true essence becomes even clearer. When you expect a message to come, even the slightest movement gets added in. They sat with complete focus, without moving and without any other thoughts. You might think so. But just sitting like this is not enough. That's not all. Here too, there is a state of Brahmarishta. You sit there thinking, when will this end? Why hasn't this world even started yet? We are still at the very beginning. How many weeks will this take? I have to come every Monday. Next Sunday, I have a meeting. What should I do about that? All these thoughts keep running through your mind. Even while you're supposed to be in Brahmarishta, all your thoughts are still being narrated by your mind. That too becomes a disturbance. The term Brahmanishta means, according to the sages, being without any other thought, without any other movement. How did Rama sit? With unwavering steadiness and focus. What does that mean? Sitting firmly in one place. Who can sit with such steadiness? Who else is there around? Rishiganai. Alright, he is present. This Acharyendram. Acharyu. Acharyendram Manad. So who is the Lord of the gods? Indra. In the same way, in the realm of gurus, there is someone who holds the highest position. Among all the worlds, among all the gurus, since he's the guru of gurus, he's called Acharyendra. So who is such a great teacher? Dakshinamurti. Kara Kalita Chinmudra. How is he depicted? Holding a staff and showing the Chinmudra. But are you being serious? That supreme Brahman principle is called Chidgana, another term that comes up. It means the concentrated essence of knowledge. It is a very profound knowledge, a knowledge that is beyond words, an incomprehensible knowledge, like trying to explain a piece of cloth. When such knowledge is being imparted, the face appears very serious. Anandamurtim. Beautiful. Chinmudram Anandamurtim. Very relaxed. So where is that state? His state is such that even when these people come and sit before him, he feels there's nothing for him to say and nothing for them to learn. He remains in his own bliss. Here, with Dakshinamurti, we think he taught something, but in reality, he said nothing. These people did not hear or learn anything. Just by sitting near that guru, one must sit like this, in the presence of the guru. Brahmanishthaihi. You must remain steady within. You must be steady outwardly as well. There should not be a single other thought. When you sit with such steadiness, without him saying anything and without you hearing anything, everything merges together. This is called silent wireless transfer. With wireless transfer, if you place one iPhone on top of another, things get transferred, right? When you put one iPhone on top of another, photos get transferred to the new iPhone. Even faster than that. If it is thought there, it is received here so wonderfully, without any worry for that. Chinmudram Anandamutrim. He is describing such immense joy. One word is very important. Let's go back again. Maunavyakhya Pragaditam Parabrahmatattvam. What I'm talking about is the Supreme Being. Rivanam Vasishtante Vasat. So, who are these disciples? Rushiganai Avrutam. How did they sit in the dark? Brahmanishthaihi. Who is speaking? Chan Acharyendram. What is their state? Karakalita Chinmudram Anandamurtim. He is sitting like this, feeling joyful. Now he is speaking. Swatmaramam Muditavadanam. What kind of joy is he experiencing? People are sitting around me. I've become so popular. But the joy I'm talking about isn't that. It's not because they're listening intently. The joy that comes from that has nothing to do with anything external. Swatmaramam Muditavadanam. Like a song that resonates within, he experienced the joy that exists within himself, contentment, inner peace. What is self-contentment? It is tranquility. What am I doing? Let me try to find rest in my wife, my husband, my children, my job, my money, my reputation, and achievements. But you won't find lasting rest there. Even if you do, it's only temporary. True, unwavering rest is available to all of us, but by the time we realize it, we will have already left this world. It was said that the rest we experience in the waking state is not true rest. Even when the soul is present in this body made of matter. Why do I talk about the method of attaining peace? The word self-abidance refers to what is within and all around you. There may be flames of fire, there may be surgeries, your world may be shaking, this samsara may be torn apart by various kinds of suffering. The people around you may deceive me, they may cause pain. No matter what the situation is, that's why it's necessary to follow this. It's very difficult to understand. Someday, if you recite the 10 verses of Dakshinamurti Stotram, even if not in this life, in another life, you will be able to grasp its meaning. This is what he says. And it's something to follow. If God grants you understanding, that's enough. So, after listening to this, what you should do is we will share this video recording again. Just listen to those 10 verses. I'm not going any further. How many weeks will it take for this to become a habit? Even I don't know. You need to listen to it 1010 times. I have to reset each belief surge and research and you phone. And from new research, something new comes, right? A new meaning emerges. That is, Swapmaramam means, in the world I have created without getting carried away by happiness or sinking into sorrow, Whatever joys or sorrows come my way, I remain within myself. As a part of myself. Anandam. Swapmarandala vibhuti. She said that. She said, in this river of joy, I will be a ball of rest. Here, I'm in a state where I don't care about anything that is swap maramam. That is why he. Now one must keep smiling. How does it rain? The disciple didn't understand at all. If there is any doubt, it won't come like this. Don't go too far ahead. Try to see how it is right here in the ashram. Remember what the Guru said. Remember it. As soon as you hear this, as soon as the world hears this, Dakshinamurti gives another test. Immediately, another situation arises. Even so, remain steadfast. It's like in some movie, when he gets angry, he just laughs. Look, doctor, you have to force yourself to smile. Chinmudram Anandamurtim Manna. Swapmaramam Muditavadanam. To such a Dakshinamurti, I offer my salutation. Dakshinamurti came to say that only Brahma, the Supreme Brahman, is inevitable. Look at those sages. Here I bow to everything, but I am not bowing to Dakshinamurti, who is the divine form of God. That means, to whom are we bowing? Salutations. They are all divine forms. I am going to Dakshinamurti. I am bowing to the banyan tree, which is the embodiment of Dharma, Vishnu and Maheshwara. Sitting with the Brahmarshi, we also bow to those sages. I am bowing to the divinity present within them. Together I bow to the meditation of Brahma, who stands between this silence and that silence. I should not limit this act of bowing either. But is Dakshinamurti really Dakshinamurti, or is it me? He has fallen. Who is Lakshnamurti, you ask? The banyan tree under which Dakshinamurti sits is Dakshinamurti himself. The sages gathered around are the embodiments of creation. The silence he observed is Dakshinamurti. Their silence is Dakshinamurti. And the Brahma knowledge that exists between these silences is Dakshinamurti. I bow to such a Dakshinamurti. If you understand, that's it. One more thing. I will finish with 2 more shlokas. Vata vitapitamipe bhumi bhage nishannam sakala munijananam jnanadataramarat tribhuvana gurumisham dakshinamurti devam janana marana dukkacheda daksham namami. I'll say it again. Vata vitapi samipe. He sat under the tree. He sat very close by. Bhumi bhage. He didn't sit against the tree. I'm God, right? I should sit outside. He didn't think that. Even that's a mistake if you ask me. I should sit below. If you look at it, that's what it seems like. Vata vitapi samipe bhumi bhage. Why did he sit on the ground then? The tree and its shade symbolize Brahma. This is to convey Brahma Jnana. Because he's close to Brahma, he sat in the place of Brahma to explain Brahma Jnana. Nishannam. He sat there steadily. That means it doesn't matter how others outside are or how much time passes. Nishannam, he sat firmly. For a steady image, the intention must also be steady. We think of doing a certain task. The very next moment, illusion comes in. What is illusion? It is what tests how steady you are. It creates a situation as if something else is more attractive. You let go and think, let me do something else, it's over. Nishannam. One must sit steadily. We need to tell him about this Brahmajnana, knowledge of the Absolute. Why? Because who are they? He himself, of course, he is seated there, ready to grant grace for the upliftment of beings who are caught and struggling in the illusion he himself created. Sakala Munijananam Jnana Data Ramarat. Who are sages? They are those who are free from all needs. These are the profound words of the Lord that can ignite the desire for you even in the heart of one who has no desires. This comes up at the very end as well. Ganapati Adavati Ekadantam Chaturhastam Yogi Yogiram. Even those dedicated yogis who claim to need absolutely nothing at all, upon whom do they truly meditate? Such a truly great and divine one. That is precisely why I call him God. Sakala Munijana Anam. Even sages who are said to have no desire sit there. They ask Jnana Datara Maharaj for the sake of receiving knowledge. That impure knowledge which they thought no one truly needed at all. Who is this Guru? He is not just the Guru of this place. The meaning of the word Guru is one who leads from darkness to light. This Guru is not just the Guru for this group. He is not just the Guru for this world. Shribhumana Gurumisham is all three. The Guru of the world is the one who guides all three worlds and the entire animate and inanimate universe on the right path. Look, since he created everything, the one who creates has authority. But here, I have no authority over the world I created, and because I have become a slave to it, I am. Whoever creates a world should have authority over it. Because he has that authority, he becomes God. But let me give a small example of the world I created. You are here. These are imported meters. I can see you. You can see me. This is the world, but can you see Rajamundry? Can you see the Godavari? Can you see America? Can you see Russia? You haven't seen them. So they don't exist. So what does that mean? What is your definition of the world? The world exists only because I have seen and understood it. Because I have perceived it, the world exists. There is no world. Meditation means being in a state where the world does not exist. That is why Tribhuvanam Isha Guru. Tribhuvana Guru Misham means that the one who controls what I have surrounded myself with must be Isha. The word Isha has two meanings. One, the one who has control over it. Two, the one who brings auspiciousness to it. The one who brings good paths. Tribhuvana Guru Misham. Dakshinamurti is the deity who is the Guru of the three worlds. To such a Dakshinamurti, anyone who seeks to remove the sorrow of birth and death has taken up the responsibility. That is called Diksha, initiation. People keep talking about Diksha, Diksha. What is Diksha, you ask? If I give you a mantra and say chant it for 22 hours a day, and no matter what danger or task comes up, you set everything aside and do the chanting for those 2 hours, that is Diksha. But just repeating it twice after the Guru says it once is not Diksha. Undertake Diksha with skill and dedication such a Diksha you should receive. Then the mantra will yield results immediately. You don't know what Adhyaksha means. Here he is explaining it. What is it? Janana Marana Dukkha Cheda Daksham. If you ask why or what knowledge they give, it is to remove the sorrow that comes from birth and death. Dakshinamurti, who came with skill to impart the knowledge that dispels forgetfulness. In just one word, Shankaracharya wrote it this way. He wrote from his own experience. He did not write poetry, he did not write from imagination. What does it mean for him to write? Just as a Veda came forth originally, it came through Dakshinamurti in the same way. It came as Aparushaya, not of human origin. We think that Shankara wrote it for us to read, but in my view, this too is a Veda. It is also Aparushaya, not of human origin, because no one can write without experiencing. Janana Marana Dukkha Kheda Daksham Namami. We are offering our salutations to such a Dakshinamurti. Anyone can do so. Water is nearby. So, where did he sit near the tree? He didn't sit on the ground like a tree. He sat very steadily, firmly. Whoever was around, he sat for some reason. Sakala Munijananam Jnanadatar Marat. For all those sages who are free from any desires, Brahma Jnana is not ordinary knowledge. It is not physics or chemistry. Who is the Datta Maharaj who sat down to impart Brahma Jnana? The Lord of the three worlds, the Guru of the three worlds, who leads all three worlds from darkness to light, who creates and exercises complete authority over himself and over that creation as Ishvara. He came as Dakshinamurti Deva for this purpose. The birth of a Jnani is special. When one comes into this world through the cycles of birth and death, to remove the sorrow that comes with it, such a one is worthy of our salutation. She is the king. His image is unique.
Chitram Vatatarormule Vruddha Sishya Gururyiva Gurostu Monam Vyakhyanam Shistyastu Chinna Sandhya.
This scene may have appeared to Shankara, to the great Shankaracharya, in the inner space of the heart. It might have manifested before him. Since he received such a wondrous blessing, he saw it and wrote such a commentary. I am sitting, he is sitting. But what is it? It is a marvel, a marvel. It is a marvel indeed, O sage. The old disciple and the guru, both are here in this scene. All around, under the shade of the banyan tree, disciples and elders are seated. What does that mean, Father? It doesn't just mean elders in age. In every way, they are elders. The weak are those who have turned away in age. But who is telling them? Guru Yuva. A young teacher is saying this. Have you ever heard us say this to adults? So what should we think after hearing this? If our grandson or our little son says, daddy is like this, mommy is like that, we should look at Dakshinamurti. What am I doing? I say, no young, no old, just keep quiet. Is that wrong? At that point, this word,
Vruddha Sishya Gururyuva.
aha, they are bringing that word into my experience. Dakshinamurti, I am the old disciple, and I shouldn't act like this. My grandson, my son who calls me dad, they are the gurus. This is the implementation of Dakshinamurti, which he explains later.
Gurostu Maunam Vyakhyanam Sishyastu Chinna Sandhya.
The guru sat in silence. This question was not asked. The question remained inside, unasked. He did not hear it. This person did not say it. They did not listen. Nothing happened. But as they sat in silence, their problems. What is the subtle movement of the disciple's mind? Not just one, but all movements sees. What does that mean? It means a state free from karma. Karma means action. No, but there karma has occurred in a subtle way. Suppose my consciousness has entered into you. Now this is called transfer prototype. My consciousness is flowing. When my inner being flows like a video, it enlightens you. You came with doubts and mind. With me, there is the knowledge that dispels doubts. You sat like that, like this.
Sharanamaham Prapadye Mukshurvai.
Don't forget the words. You sat with the desire for liberation. You sat with surrender, with complete surrender. So we sat with unwavering focus on Brahman. There are no thoughts, even though so much is present. The knowledge that is here, it has gone there. Without saying anything, he said, Nakarmana na praja. Whoever recites the Nirmana Sukta or Shankaracharya's Anuvaka, it means no action was performed. Even though so many people are present, there is no praja, no one there. There are no sages there. There is no action here. He is describing such a state. Suppose, as a student, you imagine there is darkness here. Suppose there is a lamp here. Normally, you would take this lamp over there to dispel the darkness. But when one is in such a profound state of silence or non-action, there is no sense of action, no feeling of I am doing something. There is no sense of I am experiencing for him. When one is in such a state of non-action, in a state of inaction, this lamp has gone over there, this light has reached there. So where is the darkness now? This shines, that shines. Such is the case.
Gurostu Maunam Vyakhyanam Shishyastu Chinna Sandhya. ఇంత గొప్ప చిత్రం వటతరోర్మూలే వృద్ధా శిష్యా గురుర్యువ గురోస్తు మౌనం వ్యాఖ్యానం శిష్యాస్తు చిన్న సంశయా.
He continues to say,
నిధే సర్వ విద్యానాం విషదే భవరోగిణాం గురవే సర్వలోకానాం Dakshinamurte Namaha.
He is speaking about the greatness of the Guru. You may have all the wealth in the world, you may learn any number of disciplines. These days, so many different fields of knowledge are emerging. Whatever the field of knowledge, it is all due to the Guru. The Guru is truly the essence of all knowledge. Among all forms of knowledge, the greatest treasure, the one who possesses all treasures in every way, is the Guru. Sitting in the presence of the Guru is itself a treasure. The Guru's blessing is a powerful treasure. If you have this treasure, you will come to know all forms of knowledge. That is why I always say, Sri Vidya is one. Do not try to place your feet in 2 boats at once. But some people are trying to put their feet in 4 boats at once. Choose one path. Trust in one person.
Nidhe sarva vidyānām, bishate sarva bhoginām, sarva roganām.
Who is a doctor? There are many diseases I don't know about. They do tests like a sugar test and tell me the results. But there are diseases that cannot be detected by tests, and everyone has those. Anger, hatred, jealousy, envy, depression, pride, low self-esteem, lack of trust, even doubting God or the teacher, thinking others are better than us. So many diseases do we have like this? Is there any machine to test for these kinds of diseases? A Guru himself is the machine. He can detect these things. That's why he's called Vishaja, the healer. Of all these diseases, if you ask who the doctor is, it is the Guru. That's why he is revered in all the worlds. As I mentioned earlier about the Guru of the 3 worlds. Not just for this world, even here. If you see a Guru, say, Maps Amritananda Saraswati is here. He is the Guru for Devi Purana and Guru Karana, but he is not just a Guru for these people here. He is not just your Varma Guru. How should I understand that Guru who exists in one form? Isn't this Guru, who appears in a small form just to draw me into illusion, actually present everywhere, pervading all, taking on different forms, speaking in different languages, imparting different kinds of knowledge, and providing whatever knowledge is needed to whomever requires it, functioning for everyone? The one who exists in the form of everyone is my Guru. How great is that? Other deities are just one aspect, but he alone is present in all forms. In every being is my Guru. I bow to such a Dakshinamurti.
Om Namah Pranavardhaya Suddha Jnanaika Murte Nirmalaya Prashantaya Dakshinamurte Namah.
Such a Guru, who is the teacher of the 3 worlds, the Guru of all realms, she alone can truly describe what a Guru should be like, how a Guru truly is.
Om Namah
I bow down to him.
Pranavardhaya. Om.
The profound meaning of that sacred and divine sound, Pranava, the one who is the very fundamental cause for the emergence of that powerful Pranava sound. He is not widely known. He is also the ultimate source of that boundless love.
Suddha Jnanaika Murte. Suddha Jnanam.
Physics, chemistry. Is there chemistry in something that understands physics? If you know chemistry, is there psychology in it? If you know this is it, that's all. But the kind of knowledge in which all other knowledge is merged together and yet appears as if nothing is there, that is the ultimate state.
Suddha Spatika Sankasam.
The sun has rays. They say there are 7 rays. Each of the 7 rays has a different color. This is how far we know. But those colors are only visible sometimes, like when it rains. Why is that? We usually think of sunlight as white. When all the rays combine, the light appears pure and clear, and you can't distinguish the individual colors. It's not as if the ray says, I have all 7 colors in me, and shows them all the time. We keep 5 photos, not just photos. It's through those sun rays that I come to know there are 7 colors. In the very same way, there is also purity. Pure knowledge truly means that I don't really need to say anything at all. Our Guru doesn't actually do anything, boys, Super Subbu. That's it. And then they say, I am this Ganapati, they say Shama. For 12 years, that was my state, just sitting there with nothing. Now I understand that is pure knowledge. Study it. Then, before leaving, he said nothing for 15 minutes. We do a lot just to realize that nothing needs to be done. We do so much just to realize that nothing needs to be done. Once you know this, there's nothing else you need to know. That is the essence of true knowledge. Impure knowledge is like me getting Sri Vidya or reciting Lalita Sahasranama. All these are not pure knowledge. Everything exists. Whatever you say on the surface, that is only superficial knowledge. Only someone who is pure like that can now belong to the mother. What did they say when talking about the bindi, forehead mark? It is said to be the spot on the moon-like face, made especially from musk. The bindi is made from kasturi, which comes from the musk deer. This bindi is made only with such a special substance. On her moon-like spotless face, it marks a particular spot. Where is the bindi? Is it here or not? The one here is the bindi. But by saying the all-pervading mother is here, I am limiting her. That is the blemish. That's why it is called a blemish. It's not a contradiction. In such an all-pervading principle, to limit it is called a blemish. In Telugu, since it inherently creates a limited state, the phrase Kalam ka mana cheta nirmalaya precisely means that which is entirely without any blemish or imperfection. It is that which is without limitation. Only knowledge comes to this. No other knowledge arises. Those who have learned music know about civil India. They know about heavy things. They know nuclear physics. They know everything except this. Compared to other teachers, I have no special powers at all. And look, some people would joke saying, if you go there, maybe something will happen, since he creates everything so well. Our guru was famous for his tranquility, was a guru who knew everything, yet appeared as if he knew nothing, a person of profound peace. Even after his mother passed away, he knew it very well. Wherever the guru's wife was, who was there? Back then, even telegrams were used. When a telegram arrived, it said, "Mother has passed away. Let's go and see." It was said in a casual way, "Mother has passed away. Let's go and see." Such calmness and composure. He never thought, if not for that, I couldn't have achieved this. Without thinking like that, he would recite this Dakshinamurti shloka. Reading it every day, if you listen to just this one, meaning every day, one day you will understand. You have to listen every day, listen and listen. And even if you get this clarity just once, even now, in this way, to Dakshinamurti, the embodiment of peace, which is great,